Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live with the Pricing Lady. I'm Janine Liston, your hostess. This show is about helping small business owners understand pricing better. I'm here to help you build the right pricing strategy so that you can build sustainable profit and more confidently charge your customers the price that represents the value you deliver. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited today to have a very special guest here with me, Miss Sherine Lovegrove. Hello, Sherine. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Janine. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about pricing and imposter syndrome. And this is a specialty, I can say, I would say, correct, of Sherine's. Sherine, why don't we start by having you introduce yourself to the watchers, to the viewers?
Thank you. I'd love to. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Sherine Lovegrove, and I am an author. I am a feminine coach, and gosh, I've lost myself there for a second.
That's okay.
I don't know where that went to. Anyway, crypto entrepreneur. And the thing is I help women with imposter syndrome that procrastinate, self-sabotage, and sophisticatedly hide. And what I do is I help them step into sovereignty so that they can have the life that they deserve to have, one that is healthy, wealthy, loving, and divine.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Sherine, why don't we start this off and you tell us a little bit about what you mean by imposter syndrome? Let's make sure everybody's on the same page first.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very interesting. 70% of women will suffer from imposter syndrome, but in actual fact, everyone suffers with imposter syndrome at some level or other, because when we move from one level to another, there's a sense of confidence that kind of is not matching where we are now to where we want to be. And so we start looking back and reflecting, and we think we are missing out. We haven't grown into that new role yet. So what often happens is we may actually start to doubt ourselves, and we will start to do actions that will affect us in a sense of stopping us going out there and doing the job that we maybe have been desperately wanting to do for a very, very long time. So imposter syndrome is really based on how we perform. Yes, there's lots of very deep levels of belief structures that sit underneath that, and sometimes we can correct. But if you have real embodied imposter syndrome, you don't correct. You don't go back and say, okay, well, this is just me going through my wobble. Yeah, well, this is me going through my wobble, but I'm still not feeling better.
Right.
I'm still suffering, and I worry and worry and worry.
Is that what makes it, or maybe it's not, maybe I should ask a different question. So is there a difference between just self-doubt and imposter syndrome? Is that the difference?
I think it is. The imposter syndrome is where you will start to, basically you'll start to think that, first of all, you don't belong there because you're so anxious, you can't actually validate the pleasure of a past experience. You can't say, well, I've done it now. Oh, I can do it again. It's kind of like, oh God, when's the next opportunity that I'm going to have to do this? Okay.
Right.
So the correct, if you look at the cognitive model, you don't have this exit loop. It doesn't happen. You don't get the reward. You don't feel the reward. And so you keep going back in the cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's really what happens all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So what would you say is one way that you can then identify that this is really something that you're suffering from? I hate that word, suffering, that you're experiencing.
Well, you are suffering.
There we go.
Suffering. We're suffering when we're not happy.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. We're always suffering when we're not happy. If we've got a very resilient mindset or an anti-fragility mindset, that means we will bounce back very quickly. Yeah, we go, oh, okay, so yeah, this has happened. I believe all of life is conspiring to help me. So let me see what's going on here and let me move forward. But somebody that's had or has what I think is like resistant, it's a resistant self-doubt. There's just no way we can get past that. And that is based on just such deep anxiety. And so if you can't exit this loop, you're going to suffer. You're going to go back into that cycle and really feel very, very scared. And it doesn't matter what anyone says to you. You're not going to hear them. You're not going to listen to them. You're a yes but person.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And what are the roots? Where does this come from?
I think it comes from I'm a not good enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you really look way down and you go back and back and back and back, you'll often find there's been an experience in your life where you have had such a profound effect of having that moment of not being good enough that you didn't really recover, and you didn't have anybody around you that perhaps could help you through that process in a more resourceful way.
Mm-hmm.
And very often, people that have suffered from a lot of childhood trauma, and that's not like you don't have to be beaten to have it. You can just have somebody that just doesn't believe in you and constantly grinds and grinds and grinds, that you can end up in that same place.
Right. I guess it would even be you can perceive that someone doesn't believe in you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you just need, it's really interesting. One negative requires 7 extra things of praise before you can undo one negative thought, believe it or not.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
That is very crazy. Yeah, absolutely. So, Sherine, when it comes to pricing, of course, from my side, I hear and see this reflected in people's behavior all the time. I'm curious from your own perspective, how do you think that this shows up in people's businesses in relationship to their pricing?
Well, first of all, one of the things is when you are thinking about going out and touting for any business, you're already running with this mindset over there. While you're in that interview, you're already thinking about, I've got to ask this price, I've got to ask this price. And this builds this fear going up, so that when you do ask, or no, you probably would allow yourself to give a discount before you've even asked for your price, which is often what you do. You sell yourself short. So you often undervalue yourself, or you can't see the value of your product. Yeah. And if you can't do that, then you can't be congruent with your product. So I think they chronically take discounts instead of saying, well, no, actually, I don't offer a discount. And actually, I think I'm good enough. Go to somebody else if you really need to. But this is what I do, and this is how I can give you value. And the problem is they don't say, this is how I can give you value.
Right.
So, if that makes sense. And so it's really important that, first of all, of course, your value, but secondly, to just give a discount because you're uncomfortable because of that feeling is just not helpful. Yeah.
Right. Actually, it's usually quite destructive, both to your profit and to the value. And then also, excuse me, to your psyche and your mental. It kind of, it feeds that loop that you get stuck into when you're in that imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know personally from my own experience, because, this is where I realized I had it. And it was actually when I was asking for, when I was actually asking for a raise in my price. So I decided I was going to put my prices up, and then everybody would say, but that's really expensive. And I'm going, actually, this is not as expensive as somebody else I know, and they're doing less than I do. So, this doesn't make sense. But it is because you don't sell your value. And so people question when you don't sell your value. That's it. Yeah. So if you actually put your price up and you're congruent about it, and you're able to say, well, no, that's exactly what I charge, then people they won't even quibble. They don't. Yeah.
And that's a very important point, because you actually have to believe first before most other people believe. Now, we all have those friends who believe in us more than we believe in ourselves.
Yes.
Right? That's the exception to the rule. But, you really have to believe in not only what you're offering and the value that you bring, but that you have the right prices before other people will believe as well. Because what happens is they sense that incongruity. You say, this is my price, but you say it with a proverbial question mark, right?
Yes.
And people sense that.
Exactly. And, most of our communication is nonverbal.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, the moment, there's the face stuff that we can see, but if you're on the phone or you're on something like that, sound is so quick at, just a slight change in tempo, slight anything automatically creates something going on in our system, and we'll be in a disconnect there. And so that's why our clients don't want to buy from us if we're not congruent with ourselves, because our voice is not low. We're not smiling. We're kind of stressed out, looking desperate. We think, God, I need this sale. But actually, that's really part of what the problem is,
Yeah. I hear it quite often as an intonation. People. I'll ask someone. I say, "Oh, what do you charge for that?" And they're like, $500.
Yeah, that question.
You're like, are you asking me or are you telling me?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's something about always lowering your voice at the end of, it's a skill, but it is about making sure you keep that voice really low and soft, gentle, and just really to the point. Yeah.
Right. So we've talked about what it is and how it affects us. So it begs the question, when we recognize that that's the cycle that we're in, what do we do?
Good question. What do we do? I think that there's really there are some mind hacks, and I had a beautiful one this morning when I was just listening to a podcast, and I thought it was really lovely. And part of your thing is, if you don't have value, or you're not important, or you're not special in the sense that every human being is special. And the thing is, when we don't acknowledge that we are equal to everybody else, then it makes it really hard. So it's important to before you have an interview, before you do anything, is that you make sure that you are sovereign. Basically, you stand in your power, and you start to think about all the things about why someone should be there for you, why they should come to you. Think about all those things that you do exceptionally well, so that you use those points as the way to home in. But it also means that it will allow you to keep yourself in that really important place. The second thing, which is really interesting, the moment you get slightly stressed, when I say slightly stressed, something happens, a negative thought jumps in, you move forward in a different way that then cuts off circulation to the brain. And that means you now go into that stress cycle. So just sit back, square your shoulders up, and just allow yourself to breathe down here. Because then in that moment, you give yourself time to collect yourself and be able to say something that's helpful.
Right.
Not helpful. Yeah.
Right. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I breathe. That's a big one for any trigger situation.
Yeah.
The breath can do so much. So we have a comment here from Joanne. So hi, Joanne. Thanks for joining us. And she's saying, she's reluctant to charge the $2,997 during COVID for her holistic hair loss training. It's a 6-month program help. So I'd like to address that question. First, I'd like to know what you would like to, how you can help her for that, or give her some, she's struggling with, charging that at a specific period in time. But maybe you have some questions, or you have some ideas for her.
Yeah, there are a couple of things. I mean, one of the things is to really look at about the value. I think, the idea that this is about hair loss. This is, am I correct? This is about
hair loss. Yeah.
Hair loss. Is it hair? I mean, I'm not quite sure. Is it hair loss? Like what is the hair loss kind of thing? So what is it that makes her think it's not important? That's the thing, because this is about, imposter syndrome is important. If she's thinking that the product is not important, that means that there's an incongruency between the product that she's selling and the thing of charging, isn't it? So if she's aware of thinking, okay, if somebody really gets value out of dealing with, I can help them with a hair loss, and how does that make their life? Does it transform their life? Then something, you should be paying more, charging more. Yeah, because if you're transforming someone's life and you're making it better, then COVID or no COVID, people will buy. I think there's a real misnomer in thinking that COVID is an exceptional time for not buying things and putting your prices low. I think that's, this,
Right.
you're buying into the myth that there's lack.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair. There are people who are struggling, who aren't getting paychecks and whatever. And I don't want to diminish that in any way, shape, or form. I agree with you that one, we shouldn't assume something for other people. So this is something I talk about with my clients. If you're assuming, Joanne, right from the start that they can't afford it, that's almost an insult to the client. That's their decision to make, whether or not they have the means or the resources to be able to make that investment. You should charge for the value you're delivering. Of course, you may want to do something exceptional from time to time, and you want to be supportive of people, but I would say you still need to hold that price there and then handle exceptions if that's really what you think is the right thing to do in that moment. But don't use COVID or some exceptional situation like that as an excuse to doubt the value that you bring people.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'd call sophisticated hiding. You're using something else as an excuse.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So she gave us another comment. The program is actually to teach hairstylists.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And hairstylists are going to really need jobs when COVID is over.
Right.
So it's a really valuable thing. And looking good is very important for our sense of self-esteem.
Right.
So I think it's a beautiful thing. But I also think, if, as you said, something with the idea of making exceptions, make it easier for them to pay. Don't drop your price. Make it easier. So maybe whereas before I would sometimes have charged people up front and say, no, this is the way, this is the deal. Now I'm actually changing the deal in the sense that I'm going to make it easier for you to pay monthly because it's easier and it's softer, but that's what you're going to do. So they pay the full amount. So the part of my honor is saying, well, I really want to do this for you. So therefore this will give you this value.
Right.
And so you make it easier. Make
it easier. Yes. And I always tell people the other thing you can do is add a deal sweetener. So the price is going to be the same, but during COVID, I'll give you this bonus, which is another way to add value without destroying the value of your original offer. So thank you, Joanne, so much for your question. I hope that we've given you some insights there. Let's see, I'm trying to find the time here. How are you doing for time? Okay. So Sherine, I had a couple questions here, and somehow in setting things up, I misplaced my notes. So I won't keep looking for them.
You carry on.
But I had asked you a few questions, and one of them was about your biggest pricing challenge. And you said something to the extent that there were two parts to it. What did you struggle with the most? And what was your biggest learning when it came to pricing? Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your own experience when it comes to pricing in your business?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I talked about when I was a therapist and putting the prices up and then getting used to it. And I think there is something about knowing it's going to be uncomfortable to start, because you when you move from one area to another, you're growing into that price. Yeah, so you're shifting a little bit. But so my difficulties, once I'd moved, I'd shifted. The thing is to be aware that you're going to expect that and to allow yourself to manage it in a different way. So I guess my most difficult time was when I was doing my first couple of courses, coaching things, where I actually sat there and I was trying very hard. And I realized that as I was getting towards the end, I was getting more and more tense. And I think what really, really shifted for me, I had a few failures, of course, but what really shifted was when I started to write down, as people were talking to me, I would write down the things that fitted with my program, so that I could say, well, you said this, I can help you here. You said this, I can help you here. And I was very specific. And I think the specificity of things really shifted. If, say, for example, we went off a course, I would follow up with an email and I would say, okay, these are the three things you came to tell me about. This is how I can help you. And, and I left it at that. I sort of made it easy for them to make up their mind. I didn't say you've got 24 hours. What I thought was, no, this is about a relationship. So it's really about, if you're going into someone's world, you want them to feel safe. Yeah, that's the most important thing. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to shift and change. They won't transform to those levels that you really want them to transform to.
Right.
So, you have to make your place a safe harbor and give them, live your truth. How would you want somebody else to speak to you? Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. I think it also helps when you send your clients or potential clients words back to them. It helps them feel like they're being heard.
Yeah.
And if you get it wrong, they'll let you know, which means that you can get it right. Yeah. And you actually get more information. So I actually think that's a very good way to work with people and to sort of set the stage for communicating the value. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Sherine, before we go, I have two more questions. One is, it's less of a question than a statement. You have a book that came out last year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yes, my book, Hiding in Plain Sight, No More. You had to put the no more there. Came out in April last year. And it really is the story of my journey through imposter syndrome. Really looking at what was going on. And when I started writing the book, it was a self-help book. And then I realized I'd already written a book before, which probably was the precursor of the idea that maybe I had imposter syndrome, but I didn't. I didn't notice it. And so I thought I'd write another self-help book. And then I realized that wasn't going to work until I spoke about me and spoke about my journey and what was going on. It was the best thing I ever did, because going back over my past and looking at all those little key things that made me who I am today made me realize my unique gift, in the way that I help women. And, I was a nurse, I did midwifery, I spent a lot of time working as a gentle birth specialist. So I've always worked with women, but it's interesting that I didn't do enough with mind work, and that was what I really loved. And so this was where things started to shift, and I realized that actually this is my gift, is where I overcame, and so I could help someone else with that.
Okay. Excellent. So Sherine, excuse me, I'm just checking to see if we have any further questions. Any other questions that we have, I will address them after we're done here in the comments. And there's a link to Sherine's book in the comments. I got a little bit jumpy with the clicker there. Sherine, if people want to find out more about you or connect with you, where's the best place for them to reach you?
Well, right now I think it's on LinkedIn. So if you have a LinkedIn page, then give me a call there that way. I am on Facebook, just as Sherine Lovegrove, so you can find me there. My website, SherineLovegrove.com, that is being revamped at the minute. So you may not get too much response so much on that. But to be really honest, that LinkedIn is probably the best place to get me.
Place right now. Okay, very good. Sherine, thank you so much for being on the show with us, or with me today, with us. I don't have a mouse in my pocket now. With me today, and with the listeners or viewers as well. I very much appreciate it. Imposter syndrome, I think one of the biggest takeaways that we can leave this discussion with is that for almost everyone in some aspect, this is something that they go through and experience. It's not just women, it's not just men, it's not just older or younger. It really is something that is part of the human experience. Yeah.
It does. And I think in the idea that it's more that women will experience it a lot more, maybe for longer, because of socialization, because of where we are in the world. And the thing is, so many women are moving out, and we're seeing role models now. So, I think imposter syndrome probably is going to fall down less. So hopefully it'll be on a sort of even keel and we'll get to recognize and support each other that little bit more. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Very true. Joanne, I just wanted to address your other question. Yes, you can find the replays of this on my website at JanineListon.com. In the blog section, you'll find it there. Or actually, thepricinglady.com is even easier for you to remember. So you can go to thepricinglady.com. So everyone, that's what we have for you today. I want to thank you so much, Sherine and the audience, for joining us. It's been my pleasure to be here. If you have any questions for me or you'd like to get in touch, you can go to thepricinglady.com. You can find The Pricing Lady everywhere. And it would be my pleasure to talk with you about what's going on with pricing your business and to see how I can help you. That's all for today, folks. I wish you a great week, and we'll see you next time. Until then, enjoy pricing, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.